think what is really missing in wellness today is just the basics. Let's just get the basics down. And I think once people have that, then if they have an issue they want to address, they're more ready for that information because they already know, how to eat right, how to get good sleep, how to handle stress, all the things that we all need to do to get and stay well for a good life.
So we're very excited today to have Gloria Treister on our 292 Wellness podcast. Gloria, we met you at the Global Wellness Summit in Scotland last year. We did a walking tour through St. Andrews with you, and we also had dinner with you. And what really became very apparent meeting you is that you're an absolute passionate wellness advocate, which we loved. And it was really interesting talking to you and kind of getting some of your knowledge. So just talking a bit about your credentials. You're a board-certified holistic health practitioner, EMCC accredited executive and business coach, a certified corporate wellness specialist, and a founder of Wellness Evolution. You've also brought out a book recently, and talking about all these credentials, what really was attractive to us is that you explain wellness in a very simple, approachable way for people to understand. So you take complex topics and make them easy. And I think that's also one of your passions, is really healthy choices become easy choices. So that's what we're really excited about today, to dive into the complex world and make it easy. So welcome, Gloria.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I love doing that.
So there's a lot of titles there, but if you humanize it, Gloria, how do you see yourself? How would you explain your passion and your purpose and your why?
Wow, I see myself as a student and a teacher. I love to learn everything I could possibly learn about wellness, all the new stuff. For some reason, it just resonates for me. And as soon as I learn it, I want to teach it. I think there's so many people out there who would like to be well and really don't know where to get started. You can go on the internet and look for things, but just as an example, if you decided you wanted to eat healthy and you said, should I eat eggs? If you went on the internet, you would find, no, don't eat them. Yes, eat them, but only eat the egg whites. No, you have to eat the yolks. Only eat 2 a day. No, you can eat more. And by the time you're done, you're like so frustrated, you want to just go buy a bag of chips and say, oh, forget it. I think what is really missing in wellness today is just the basics. Let's just get the basics down. And I think once people have that, then if they have an issue they want to address, they're more ready for that information because they already know, how to eat right, how to get good sleep, how to handle stress, all the things that we all need to do to get and stay well for a good life.
It is complicating, and there's a lot of misleading information. Why is that? Why do we fall into that trap, or what is it in society or marketing or big pharma, big business, whatever it is that drives that, do you think?
It's an interesting question because I just listened to a webinar this week about disinformation and misinformation. I didn't even know there was a difference. I was like, wow, I really want to hear about this. And I think what happens is there's studies that come out and people just assume that those studies are giving them the right information. But you have to dig a little deeper because you have to see, well, who funded the study? If it's a study about a drug, did the drug company pay for the study? Because it might be skewed, in which case you're not getting correct information for yourself. And so I think there's a lot of things at play. A lot of people in the supplement industry, for instance, saying this is a miracle cure. And so everybody goes out and buys it and it doesn't do anything, or maybe there's toxic chemicals in there that you're not aware of. And so you have to be careful about where your information is coming from and do your research. I mean, even if you're using AI, you've got to check and make sure that there's good resources to back up what they're telling you. And I think that for me, learning to be a good label reader is a great place to start. If you look at the labels on your food, on your personal care products, on your cleaning products, even toothpaste has toxic chemicals in it. So you've got to start to really be your own best advocate. And to do that, you need a basic foundational education. Once you learn the basics, though, you're all set. You can figure things out.
What was your path? Where did you start? Obviously, you have more accredited certifications, but as a basic knowledge, where would you go and get some basic wellness knowledge that you feel like is reliable and is easy to understand? Like you're saying, even looking at labels and understanding them. What would you say is a good resource?
Well, I mean, without being self promotional, I just wrote a book. I'll show it to your viewers here called Wellness 101 Simple Steps to Good Health. And that was my reaction to all of the information out there. Like I said, I love to learn. And every time I went on a webinar, they would start kind of in the middle. And it was like, wait a minute, what about the basics? Where are the basics? And so when I decided to go ahead and write this book, I intentionally made it full of beautiful pictures, which I'll show you in a minute. Simple language, very simple language, and every topic is in 1 and 2 page, what I call articles about a subject. It's enough information. You don't need a lot of information, you just need the basics. And so, as an example, I mean, you can see, for instance, if you want to know about fiber, everybody needs to eat fiber, right? But why? Why do you need fiber? So, this page tells you what fiber is and why you need it. At the bottom, there's a little green box with a activity. So you circle all the benefits that you think fiber would give for you that are important to you. And then the page next to it are pictures of where you get fiber and lists. That's enough. You don't need to know more than that. And I think sometimes people go overboard. Now, if all of a sudden you decide you want to know more, that's okay. Then you go and dig a little deeper. But every topic is covered that way. And it's intentional that there's a lot of white space because I find that people today don't have much of an attention span anymore. Our society is quick, quick, quick. So I intentionally made it very simple. And I think looking for resources like that and just figuring out, okay, what are the basics of nutrition? What are the basics of exercise, stress management? What do I need to know if I'm concerned about toxic chemicals, which we all should be? They're a big part, as you know, from knowing how to avoid toxic building supplies and, um, you know, home goods and things like that, we live in a toxic world. So we really need to know what does that mean and how can you avoid them? And learning a little bit about what's available to us today, because science has taken us to a point where you can get very, very specific about your own unique biochemistry through lab testing. And so I would encourage people to want to dig deeper and deeper into what's going on for them and figure out at a root cause level, why do I have this problem? Or why don't I have the energy I want? Or why is my skin wrinkling? Or whatever it is that, the place that you're coming from, so that you can find that out. The information out there is amazing.
Yeah, you touched on some really good topics that we want to dive in a little bit deeper. But I want to go back to one thing you said about when we were talking about fiber. You said about in your book, you can circle, why is fiber important for me in my diet? And I think that's the key word is why. And we kind of spoke about it as well. You explained to me very well as like why the why is so important to even do the things around health and wellness is without the why, your motivation wanes. It's like it comes January 1st and you're really motivated. By the second week of January, you probably don't have that motivation anymore if the why isn't strong enough. So if you would share your explanation and the importance of the why in wellness, that would be amazing.
Oh, thanks for that question. I love that question. I used to, I like to speak. And when I used to speak, I just started talking about wellness. And I realized that just like in business, you really need to know what's your why. Why do you have this company? What is your mission? I feel like it's the same with your health. Unless you know why you want to get and stay well, it let's make that more positive. When you know why, you want to get and stay well. You can always refer back to your why when you're making decisions. I think that the number is something like we make 35,000 decisions a day, choices. I don't know if that number is exactly right, but I heard that recently. So I think over 70% of those choices we make every day somehow impact our health. Could be more. And so, why would you make a decision to eat a healthy salad or something for lunch rather than going to McDonald's? And so, you've got to always refer back to it. So, I spoke at the Employer Benefit Congress, and on each chair, I put a circle that was cut out of tagboard with a Sharpie, and it had a little piece of Velcro on the back. And I had a booth with a wall that was black Velcro. And I asked everybody to write their why they wanted to be well on that circle and bring it to my booth and put it on the wall. And I have a great picture of that wall. And it was very interesting because one person wrote 4 names on the circle. And I said, well, who are those 4 people? And the guy said, those are my kids. That's why I need to stay well. Somebody else said, well, because it's easier to stay well than it is to get well once you're sick. Somebody else wrote, to fit into my skinny jeans. So you can see that the topics vary, the reasons vary, and it doesn't really matter what your reason is, so long as you know what it is. And then when you're making those choices, you can say, oh, yeah, I don't think I want that extra dessert today because my why is I want to dance at my granddaughter's wedding. So you kind of have to narrow it down and figure out for yourself something that really is meaningful to you that you can refer back to so you make good decisions. And as I've mentioned to you before, my motto is be cool to your future self. The heart attack that someone has at 50 didn't just happen, it started at 20. Health is cumulative. And so when we're making these decisions that impact our health every day, just because, sometimes they'll say, oh, that isn't that bad for you because you're only doing it in small doses. They say that all the time about toxic chemicals. But if you're doing it every day, it's going to build up over time. And sooner or later, your body's going to say, I can't handle that anymore. Same with having bad posture. People don't stabilize their core muscles. They walk around all day like this. They're sitting at a computer all day like that. And then one day, right? One day, quote unquote, their back goes out. Well, that didn't just happen. It's cumulative. It happens over time. So we need to be mindful of taking care of ourselves every day.
And do you see many differences generationally on what people are, putting as their why or when they focus on it? Because I know when I was younger, I didn't think that much about you think life's going to go on forever and you're not going to get old and you don't really care about it. I'm getting a sense the younger generation is not thinking like that anymore, but I think it's changing as each generation comes along.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ben. I think once people start hitting their mid to late 30s, especially women, and the hormones start changing, and all of a sudden, when they used to be able to eat that cake for dessert every night and not gain a pound, and now all of a sudden they're gaining it, or they're starting to see different changes in their body or their energy level or their sleep, I think that's when people really start buying in. I mean, some younger people might decide early on, I want to live a healthy life. I like activity. I like eating healthy. That's a different story. But for most people, like you're saying, they're good. They think they're going to be good forever until whatever it is happens for them. And so maybe they get a bad test result. Maybe they're losing bone density or their hormones are out of whack and they can't sleep. Or they notice that they have brain fog. That's when people start paying attention. Is it too late at that point? Not really. It's never too late. But I think it's a better strategy not to wait till that happens. But if you do, it's okay. You can implement these changes anytime.
And what would you say, going through your career, what can you pinpoint that you think has changed a lot, that you used to think was that was the, you know, the gold standard of health and wellness, and now is different? And can you summarize what your sort of routine looks like to keep yourself healthy and well?
Yeah, I want to know that one too.
Yeah. I started my career in healthcare taking over a family physical therapy company. So I was in the physical therapy world for 17 years. I sold my company to a publicly traded company and worked for them for 6 years. And all the time that I was doing all that, I could never understand why people wait until they're broken and then try to fix it. And I used to ask people that question. And it wasn't that I was like some, medical genius or anything. I wasn't. It just never made sense to me. And so I started asking people. When I was in the physical therapy world, I spent a lot of time asking doctors for referrals, and so I would go and talk to them. And after I'd talk about physical therapy, I'd say to them, "What do you think about preventive health care? What do you think about healthy eating? What do you think about exercise?" And none of them were in favor of it. I actually wrote a business plan for Wellness Evolution back in the year 2000. And it was a really good business plan. I have a lot of business expertise, and I wrote a great plan. And I shopped it around trying to get people to want to invest in wellness. And most people said to me, "Great business plan, very well written, but no one's going to ever pay for wellness." And I think we all learned at the Global Wellness Summit last month that no, it's a 6 point whatever trillion-dollar industry right now, expected to grow to 9 trillion. So something's happening, which is good. A lot of conversation about that. But back in 2000, everybody was saying, "No, this isn't right." And I kept saying, "But I don't get it. Why don't we work preventively? Why don't we do that?" I actually met with a doctor from a hospital system that I was trying to convince to let me run a wellness department for them. And I told them I would run it for free. I said, "You don't even have to pay me. Just let me talk to your doctors about wellness and see if I can get them to refer people in." And so I started telling him what we were going to do at Wellness Evolution. And he looked at me and, swear to God, he said, "I don't get it. What does nutrition have to do with health?" So that's what I was up against in 2000. And I, for some reason, just kept thinking, why don't they get it? I get it. And I really wanted that for other people. I wanted it for myself, but I wanted it for other people too. So I opened Wellness Evolution anyway.
Very cool. And then for yourself, what's your wellness routine look like?
Well, I'll tell you, I think the biggest thing that I look for is organic food, primarily. A couple of years ago, people would say, "Oh, it's too expensive." But I think that excuse is kind of old. Costco has organic food, Trader Joe's, if you have those in your areas. And so I do my level best to avoid toxic chemicals. I would say learning to read a label is important. Even if I have lists of toxins and what to look for in my book. I have charts that make things easy. And just even picking up the box from your toothpaste and comparing it to the list is like saying, okay, I shouldn't be putting this in my mouth 2 to 3 times a day. Shampoo is toxic. Deodorant is toxic. So we definitely live in a toxic world. I think education is key. Once you know better, you can do better for yourself. And so I try to learn and purchase wisely. And even just setting up your house, it's so simple. I see plants in your background. I mean, they suck up toxic chemicals in our environment that they love and we don't want. And so it's a beautiful relationship. Something as simple as putting a plant in your bedroom you could do. But avoiding toxins, detoxing is very important to me. But avoiding them in the first place is the best strategy. It's, getting non-GMO foods, which are genetically modified. And if the listeners aren't familiar, genetically modified means that these plants have had their DNA messed with so that they can withstand being sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. The key there is the side. I mean, it kills bugs, it kills weeds, and it can kill people if you get enough of it. And those are the things they're saying to us. Oh, don't worry, it's, minimal exposure. But if you're eating that on a daily basis, it is going to build up. And so, my number one tip would be to avoid toxic chemicals if you can. I mean, even artificial sweeteners, a lot of them are toxic. So they're all over. You just have to get a good education, and it doesn't have to happen all at once. You can learn little things, learn one chemical today, and avoid it.
Yeah, you were talking about toxins. When I started learning about that in either our food products or body care, is really what dawned on me is how much hormone disrupting it is. And that's something that you might not necessarily think of straight away. But once you understand that consequence, it's huge. So is there any kind of example that you can give that's easy to understand? Is we're talking about it being bad, and when it messes with our hormones, what that can mean to the body and why that is ultimately something we want to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely hormone disruptors. And a lot of the things, I mean, even young girls are developing earlier because of these things. It's messing up with kids' hormones, things like drinking milk with cows that have been injected with hormones to make more milk. And learning, speaking of milk, learning also about what your body likes and doesn't like. Gluten, for instance. There's not a person on the planet that's gluten deficient. You don't need gluten. It's just added to things. And for some people, it can disrupt your whole gut. It eats holes in your gut lining. So, not everybody. Some people can tolerate gluten, but why eat it if you don't need it? And dairy is also a huge problem. And I think that kind of leads me into something we talked about with the root cause approach to your health. Because for some people, some foods, um, they might be allergic. Okay, you hear about people who have peanut allergies that can go into anaphylactic shock and die. They have to carry an EpiPen. But for some people, certain foods are just not tolerated very well. And so you can eat something on Monday and not have a reaction till Wednesday or Thursday. So it's kind of hard to tie it back to a root cause. But a lot of things that people suffer with, for instance, dairy. If any of the listeners have unexplained sinus problems or congestion, dairy is very mucus producing. And without even getting tested, you can just eliminate it from your diet. You need to do it for at least 21 days. It takes that long to get it out of your system. But if you can avoid it for a solid 3 to 4 weeks and then note how you feel each day, maybe keep a diary of how you're feeling. You could do that with any food, and then add it back and see what happens. You can pretty easily pinpoint where your symptoms are coming from.
On that,
It's really cool.
yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, you can do a test too,
Yeah.
but those cost money, and some people don't have the resources for that. They're not terribly expensive, and they're easy. You can actually do them at home and send them into the lab. There's so many cool things you can find out about your own unique biochemistry, because literally there's no one else like you on the planet. Everybody is biochemically unique. And once you honor that, you learn about your bio uniqueness, because we all have different genetics, we all have different lifestyles, we live in different homes. Um, you'll appreciate this being in the building industry. I had a huge problem with lead, having grown up in an era where lead was in paint and a lot of other things. I wound up having an issue where I was passing out literally in the middle of the afternoon. It was totally unexplained. We couldn't figure it out. And I got tested for heavy metals and it came up positive for lead. So I had to detox from lead, and it doesn't happen to me anymore. It was that simple.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the heavy metal testing, I feel like, is become a lot more popular as one of the add-ons you can do for any sort of blood tests now. So, and I think that's really interesting. I think lead is mercury. I can't remember what the other one is, but that didn't seem to be as popular or accessible even. So I think that's really changed.
It's changed a lot, and now more and more testing companies are coming out and making it available to consumers. I mean, it used to only be for doctors. Now you can do certain tests without a doctor, and the results are very user friendly. I have a whole chapter in my book breaking down all of the lab tests and what they are. And um, the other thing for listeners to know about lab tests is that um, depending on the norms, you know how you get a score and it says, oh, you're okay because you're between this number and this number.
Hmm.
But you really want to know what set of norms they're using. Because for me, I'm 73 years old. When I get my hormones tested, I don't want to be normal for a 73-year-old. I want to be normal for a 35-year-old
Mm.
because I want to feel like I'm 35, not my real age. And I do, but I want to make sure that if somebody's looking at my test results, they're not saying I'm okay based on the older age or a different test range of norms. I want to be in the right category of norms. And so you can look that up. And I've written about that. But I would refer to functional medicine norms because those are going to be more closely
Mm.
related to having good energy, feeling good, looking good. And so just be aware of that. Don't let somebody tell you you're okay if you don't feel okay. You
Mm.
got to keep digging a little deeper.
Yeah, I think that's some really good advice. Yeah.
That is a good point. The whole sort of personal testing industry's exploded recently, and as has the whole wellness industry. And it ultimately is good, but you've got to find, the trusted resources and not people just trying to leverage you, especially because people are either they're not educated or they feel vulnerable, so they start seeing the marketing and think it's going to make them better, and it's ultimately just a way to leverage money out of people who are not well versed on the subject. So it is tricky. So I'm glad you got a chapter in your book about that subject.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to mention that, my approach to health and wellness is a functional medicine approach. And for those who haven't heard about that, um, conventional allopathic medicine is what most doctors are practicing today. And when people call it traditional medicine, I push back because that is not traditional medicine.
Mm.
Traditional medicine is what was happening with our ancestors and Native Americans and Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. It's not what we're doing today. Allopathic means treating with drugs and surgery. And that's what most doctors are doing today. So, with a allopathic medical approach, I might go to my doctor and say, Doc, I can't sleep. And the doctor will say, okay. And they pull out their prescription pad, they write you a script. Here you go. Here's a sleeping pill. If this doesn't work, come back in a month and we'll try a different one. That's one approach, right? A functional medicine doctor would say to you, you can't sleep. I wonder what's causing that. Let's get to the root cause of that problem. What are you doing before you go to bed? Are you eating before you go to bed? What's your bedtime routine? Have you been having this problem since you were a kid, or when did this start? Is it that you can't fall asleep or you can't stay asleep? So they really are digging deeper to find the root cause. So the difference would be you got a symptom, I'm going to squash the symptom with a drug, or you have a symptom, let's figure out where it's coming from and work our way up and build some wellness inside of you so that we can correct that problem. And I think they're more like medical detectives as opposed to just giving you, oh, here's the answer. But it really might not be the answer, and it's not solving the problem. I mean, what if you're on your computer until the minute you pass out and the blue light's responsible for it or the stress is responsible for it? You're not addressing those things, and that's really important. And I would also caution viewers too that getting a prescription seems like an easy response, an easy answer. But first of all, come on. We've all seen the commercials with all the side effects being listed at the end. Those side effects are coming from somewhere. And so I even have a chart in the book listing all of the drug categories and some specific drug names and what nutrients they actually either deplete from your body or block the absorption in your body. So, an example of that would be if you're taking a statin drug, allegedly to make it better for your heart health, um, it actually blocks the absorption of coenzyme Q10, CoQ10. And so when you're taking that, it would be advisable to supplement with about 100 or 200 milligrams of CoQ10 a day. You need CoQ10 for your muscles to work. It creates something called ATP. So when I flex a muscle, my body's using ATP to flex it. Well, what's your heart? Your heart's a muscle.
So,
It needs it. And you're taking something that's supposed to be doing good things for your cholesterol, but it's also not allowing your heart to work properly. So that was my computer, sorry.
no problem.
And so, these are things that I like to teach and help people understand so that when you take a medication, you have the courage and the knowledge to say to your doctor, okay, what is this for? Why am I taking it? And what can it do to me? Because I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to who I will say, what drugs are you on? And they'll tell me, I'll say, okay, what's this one for? I don't know. Why are you taking it? My doctor told me to. What can it do to you? I don't know. And so that would be a great place to start, taking care of yourself and feeling empowered to ask those questions because doctors are good people. They're not bad people. They don't have time. And so if you don't ask, they're not going to sit there and explain things to you. You really have to be your own best health advocate.
Yeah, I think that's nice how you said the word empowered, because I think when it comes to our health, often is so much about fear around it. It's like fear about finding out about something, a diagnosis or having an illness. And I think really rather the empowerment that you can understand it, prevent it, and like you're saying, really get the root cause without it also coming back. So I think the empowerment part is really resonates with me in this versus the fear that we often have around health.
Yeah, I mean, people are afraid to ask their doctors questions sometimes, and then they're just walking around taking things. They don't even know what it is, what it's for, what it can do to them. And I don't know, I can give you a really good personal example of the difference between an allopathic approach and a functional medicine approach that happened to me. I had a bone density scan and I'm losing bone. I was losing bone. And I went to my allopathic doctor and she said, oh, your bone density is going down. Next year, when you come for your physical, I'll put you on a medication for your bones. And I said, but wait a minute. It's happening to me right now. Why am I waiting a year? She goes, oh, it's not that bad. You just have osteopenia. You're not osteoporotic yet. So we can wait a year. We'll take care of it. And I thought, oh, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just leaving. I went to my functional medicine doctor and I said, Nancy, I'm really worried about my bone density. And she said, well, let's take a look at that. And she said, let's figure out why you're losing bone. And she ran some tests that a conventional allopathic doctor would not run. She tested my parathyroid hormone. I've been in healthcare for over 40 years. I didn't even know we had a parathyroid. We have 4 of them, actually. And I didn't know what it was for. But she tested it and my blood calcium levels. Turns out I had a bad parathyroid gland. You don't need all 4 of them, although, I'm not one to give up body parts that easily. But one of them was bad. When you have a bad parathyroid gland, your body thinks you don't have enough calcium. So it starts pulling it out of your bones and putting it in your blood. So I had to have that removed. If I had waited the year and just listened to my conventional doctor, nothing would have happened for a year, number one. Then she would have put me on like Boniva or one of these drugs that puts more calcium in your body, which my body would have then started turning around and putting it in my blood, which could have caused me to have a heart attack because you don't want calcium gumming up your arteries. So I was very grateful that I took the initiative to go dig a little deeper into why am I losing bone? Because I said to my conventional doctor, I do weight bearing exercise. I take calcium. Why am I losing bone? I have good vitamin D levels. What's going on with me? And she's like, don't worry about it. So I'm glad I did. And I
Yeah.
would encourage listeners, if somebody's telling you that a problem you're having is all in your head or there's nothing wrong with you, don't worry. Listen to your body. It's sending you messages all the time. If you listen to your body and something doesn't feel right, go check it out.
Yeah, but that's a great example, Gloria. Thank you for sharing that. When you shared that story with me, I was like, wow, that really opened my eyes to what else there can be than what you're thinking, or even like you're saying, not acting on it soon enough, but you can.
You know
Yeah.
what's really cool? I'll give you I just got my bone density checked the week before last, and I don't even have osteopenia anymore.
Wow.
I started taking a supplement that I had heard was very good and that the doctor thought would be good for me. And my bones have increased since then and not decreased. So I'm out of the range where I have a problem anymore.
Oh, that's great to
So,
hear.
Yeah, that's pretty
yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's always nice to hear that those anecdotal stories actually, there's a benefit and there's a result that you can measure the other side. Very cool. You always talk about inflammation as the root cause of disease.
Mhm.
Can you go into that in a little more detail?
Yeah, Hippocrates said that over 2,000 years ago, and we're just now starting to figure it out for ourselves. Come on. He also said, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. You know how sometimes they say to you, if you could have lunch with anybody alive or dead, who would it be? I think for me, it would be Hippocrates. How did he know all this stuff? I can't even figure that out, but inflammation is the root cause of all disease. If you have been diagnosed with anything that ends in itis, arthritis, gastritis, anything that ends in itis means inflammation. So, what you might want to do is think about adding curcumin, which comes from the turmeric plant. That's something you can learn about supplements, but you want to make sure when you're doing something like supplementing that you're getting the right form. So, for instance, inflammation, curcumin is the active component in the turmeric plant. So, just taking turmeric is not enough. You need curcumin and 95% curcuminoids. Now, that's kind of technical, so I don't mean to get techie on you. But to make things even easier, I marked a book page in here, and you can get this information anywhere. But here's a chart. Okay. And it says inflammation's a root cause, right? One side of the chart tells you eat less of these foods because they cause inflammation. And the other side says eat more of these because they fight inflammation. It's a quick list. It's very simple. Some foods are pro inflammatory and some are anti inflammatory. Things like antioxidants from berries, for instance. Eating berries is a good thing. Eating too much red meat, you've probably heard that causes inflammation. So a lot of that comes from diet, and you can control that. You can say, okay, I'm starting, if you have arthritis or you're starting to get arthritis, instead of taking a drug, take a look at the list and say, am I eating too much of this? Maybe I could cut back a little bit. Maybe instead of eating meat 5 days a week, I'll only have it 2 days. And so you can make adjustments like that to control it. But inflammation is the root cause of all disease. And so that's a great place to start, Ben. That's a place where you have control. You know what you can eat, what you can't. And then if you really need some extra help, you can take fish oils, which everybody should probably be supplementing with, good quality ones, because you don't want to get mercury like we were talking about before. Mercury is a neurotoxin. So you want to make sure that you're not getting the cheapest thing on the shelf. Get something good quality. And it's good for your brain. It's good for your skin. It's good for your heart. and keeping the inflammation down. I mean, carditis, bursitis, all the itises you can control with some food. And a little bit, if you need supplements. I'm not suggesting everybody does. Um, Most people would say in a functional medicine approach, start with your diet. And then if you need to add things, then you can.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Anissa's been doing it for over a year, but I started the Life Force program, which is one of the blood draws. They come to your house every 3 months, take your blood, test you. I did my first one in October, so January will be my sort of follow-up. And of course, they recommend you take a bunch of supplements. So the skeptic in me is pushing back a little bit, saying, hold on a minute. Because initially when I spoke to them, they reviewed my initial blood test and then just jumped straight on to say, hey, come and use all these supplements. But they didn't really ask me much about my lifestyle. So I pushed back and said, but you haven't asked me about my diet or my sleep or my exercise. So we had that conversation, which was educational for both parties. But I have been taking supplements. So I'm going to be really interested to see how those results have changed over 3 months, and if it's just a marketing gimmick or if there's real benefit to some of those things. Because they test my hormones too, so that's going to be a big key apart from all the traditional blood markers. So yeah.
And then, speaking about blood tests, like, I don't know if you know the answer to that, but my curiosity always is, we're dealing so much with stress. Like, that's totally unavoidable, I feel like, in this world. And do you have any experience what to look out for in blood tests? What are kind of sort of the markers that show that your body's under stress or chronic stress? Do you have any?
Yeah. Stress can really impact you. People don't take stress seriously enough, I think, sometimes. They say, oh, I can handle it. But stress is real, and it does affect your body. One thing in particular that a lot of people struggle with is adrenal fatigue, and stress will blow out your adrenals pretty quickly. And so you have to do things to make sure that you're dealing with stress, and really dealing with stress on a daily basis, meaning giving yourself some space to calm down, to relax, to de-stress at the end of the day. Exercise, great stress reliever. I think the problem with exercise for some people, and especially as it relates to being stressed, is that they think, oh, I don't have enough time. I don't have time to work an extra hour into my day to work out. And so what I'd like to encourage people who feel that way to do is to have exercise snacks. 10 minutes, 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. Maybe once an hour, get up and walk around your house or your office in circles. It's good to reduce your stress. And the good news is it all adds up. I mean, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, it counts. Don't think that doesn't count. If you once an hour took a 5-minute stretch break, maybe you do some squats, do some push-ups against the wall. You don't need to go to a gym. You don't need to be in a class. You can figure it out for yourself. And honestly, if you can't afford to go to a gym, or it's inconvenient to go to a gym, you can buy a piece of TheraBand and do a whole workout. The company that makes TheraBand has TheraBand Academy online. They show you all the different exercises you can do with an exercise band. So maybe you keep a band by your desk and you just pull on it when you're talking on the phone. Or if you're in the office and you have a meeting, you can walk and talk instead of sitting and
I
talk.
sometimes do that.
Yeah.
Laps around the conference room.
I love that though.
It counts.
Exercise snacks, I think
Exercise
that's great.
snacks, yeah, that's good. But I think it's nice what you were saying, because when we were talking all about today, really sharing sort of the easy steps to do something for yourself. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. It doesn't have to be the extreme luxury biohacking or the most elaborate exercise that you feel like, okay, you do it one week and then after that it's not sustainable. I think that's really important, because it's always like it's all or nothing, or it's the best of everything. The simple things are sometimes in our mind not good enough. But like you were saying, really just remembering that those things are accumulating, they add up, and they make a difference. And I think it makes a difference to our mindset as well, because if you start adding these things to your day, you do make different choices around food or your sleep, or because you're more connected to your body, and that connects you back to your why. So I think this is all really good reminders. Thank you,
I
Gloria.
do have something for your listeners that can help. I put together a 30-day health recharge. So when you sign up for it, you get an email every day for 30 days, and it's very brief, and it gives you one little thing to do that day, one wellness thing. Like, for instance, one day it might say, drink more water, because I know I'm guilty of it. I don't drink enough water. I try, but I forget. And so that day it'll tell you why you need to drink water, how much water you should be getting every day. And then the next day you'll get a different tip. And at the end of the week, it encourages you to go look back at the week and say, which one of the 7 things you did this week are you willing to incorporate into your life? And I think it's really important for people to think, it's like, they always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's like, baby steps are fine. Baby steps are fine. You don't have to do everything all at once. But once you start feeling better, and it's interesting too, because some people think they feel good, but they don't know how good they could really feel. They could feel better. Some of it might be based on something as simple as your blood type. There's a whole philosophy around that. Some people are meant to eat meat. Some people aren't. Some people, I took care of a guy who wanted so badly to be a vegan, and he really wasn't built to be a vegan. He was built to eat meat. And a lot of that has to do with who your ancestors were, where they lived, where they emanate from. It's cultural too. And so I think that, like I said earlier, everybody's different. Everybody's unique. And if you start to honor your own biochemical uniqueness and figure out, and your body will tell you, if you don't feel good after you eat something, your body's telling you something. Pay attention. You only get one body. I like to start my lectures off with saying, okay, show of hands. How many of you in this room have a spare body at home that you're going to move into after you trash this one?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, no one can raise their hand because nobody has a spare body, and it gets a good laugh, but it drives home a point. This is it. This is what you get. One. And so it's your choice if you're going to take good care of it and be a good, what do they call it, like a custodian of your body, whatever. And just learn how to manage it and take care of it and be kind, keeping in mind that your future self will thank you. You don't want to be that person who would rather be traveling the world and instead is lying in a nursing home having someone change your diaper. It just is a picture that I can't see for myself, and I don't want it for you or for your listeners. I want everybody to have a good life.
It's very true, isn't it? We do only get one body. It's interesting now with stem cells and the ability to sort of start farming organs from your stem cells that they can collect, how long it will be before they can start sort of growing you a second body. So it'll be interesting what the future holds.
Won't it? That's fascinating to me. It's a little creepy, but it's also fascinating.
But I think the negative side effect of that is that I feel like people feel like they can not take care of themselves as well, because now there's all these new technologies coming out that's going to, save them down the road, even with the, what's the Ozempic's GLUs or GU1?
GLP-1.
GLP-1. Mm-hmm. So many people now just taking it because they're slightly overweight. And it's just like, it's an easy, you're getting rewarded for doing something bad in the first place. So it's this contradiction in my mind.
It is. And actually, there's a probiotic that I recently learned about that can make your body stimulate its own GLP-1. It's called Akkermansia. And it's pretty compelling. So hopefully people will go that route, because if you start going on the pharmaceutical route, my understanding is that it's hard to get off.
That's what
you just gain all the weight back. And so why not let your body make its own GLP-1? Unless you're diabetic and you need those drugs. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
No, it doesn't appeal to me. I think the muscle loss is the key as well, isn't it? Because whilst it will lose fat, you're also losing a lot of muscle at the same time.
Are you? Yeah. That I'm not familiar with, but that happens a lot with a lot of weight loss. solutions for people. So, yeah, I'd be cautious about any medication. Personally, look. There's some that are wonderful and they're saving lives, and I'm not knocking them all,
Absolutely.
but just be cautious.
Yeah,
Be your own best
absolutely.
advocate with that. There's so many cool things though happening, and like right now, one of the big things also is called senescent cells, which I've become fascinated with. Your body makes its own toxins. There's some cells that your cells are programmed to die, and they turn over, right? You get new cells. They say, oh, you get a whole new body. Well, some of your cells forget to die, and they turn into what are called zombie cells, and they hang out in your body, and they're not there for any purpose, and they can go rogue and turn into cancer cells. So now there's ways of getting rid of senescent cells, which is kind of cool. You can detox from that too. I think that's why I love healthcare so much, because there's new stuff coming out all the time, that is fascinating to me. Most people don't need to know it. If you, like I said, if you know the basics and just think of your daily routine as a health checking account. I like to liken it to that. Are you making more withdrawals than deposits? Kind of at least keep it even and make sure that, okay, I did a little exercise, I ate some healthy food, and then, so I ate that pie for dessert. That's your, withdrawal. But you can do that if you kind of stay balanced. I think balance is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's another really nice analogy that makes it kind of simple to understand. Don't withdraw more, more than you put in into your
Yeah,
account.
yeah, it's easy to visualize,
Yeah.
right?
Really, what I love about you, Gloria, is like you were saying, you're so interested in it and you study it and you know the new stuff, but you also really then share it straight away. And that's really, I really want to thank you for that too, with the podcast that you've done and the free program that you're offering for our listeners. It's just really the willingness to share and just for other people to be well. So I think that's, I really want to, say thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it. I don't know why I love it. I just do. It's just like you guys love architecture and design, and, that's how we express it. And I think it's beautiful to share it with people and to help empower people to take control of their own lives.
Perfect. And like we learned, it's the little steps. So we'll definitely put a link in for the 30-day program with the small advice per day that you mentioned. And then I think that would be a good start for anyone who's not quite sure where to start. And I think then things show from there. I think other avenues will show up once you get started.
Yeah, and pick up a copy of my book too. It's really beautiful, and it's been I made it so easy. There's beautiful pictures and charts, and I'm currently working with a functional medicine doctor, and we're writing a course called Wellness 101. It'll be launched in the new year, early on, and we're going to do very, very small groups of 20 people, because we want to give personalized attention with live sessions with the functional medicine doctor. So being able to ask questions, which you don't normally get to do, we're hoping that that's something that people really want and benefit from.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would be interested in that. Asking you more questions.
Yeah.
That would be
Absolutely.
great. Thank you.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Gloria. I think that's been one of the wonderful things about us joining the Global Wellness Institute and going to the summits, that we meet so many people connected to wellness, but in a completely different industry from us. And it's so great to learn, because it helps us with our design process, because we can take ideas about what you're talking about, how to encourage people within their own homes or their built environment to live a more healthy and well-focused life. So thank you so much for sharing all your wonderful knowledge.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate you, and I loved meeting you too, and learning about what you do and how you're helping people in your own way too.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank
It's been
you.
a great conversation.
Thank you very much.